joined by Michigan State Representative Joe Tate and United States Senate candidate. Welcome to This is Sparta MSU, Joe. You want to talk about you. Obviously, you being a former Michigan State Spartan like myself, we want to talk about your journey there first. Let's talk about your days growing up back in Michigan and what drove you to become the football player first that you became, and also the student, obviously, being able to have the career that you've had so far.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks for having me on the show, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I think for me, it started, familiar state of Michigan story, just growing up here. Grandparents came here for a better opportunity from down south. And I grew up in the Detroit area here. My grandfather was a bricklayer. He was a tradesman, laid a number of foundations and across the city of Detroit, while just supporting his family and instilling values of hard work to them. And that transferred over to my father, who was a firefighter for the city of Detroit, serving the community that he loved. He passed away in the line of duty when I was a baby, but I always remembered just kind of what he did, for his city and for his community. And my mom was a public school teacher, so she, understood how important getting a good education, and that always stuck with me as well too. And as I started to grow up as a kid, teenager, got involved in athletics, and I think it was really because of my mom. She wanted to give me something to do, and make sure that I wasn't getting into any trouble. So that's how I got involved in athletics, and went to Southfield Lathrop, and right before I even started ninth grade, we ran it past the high school football coach. He said, "Hey, you need to get involved." And that's how I jumped into to football and into sports at Lathrop, and was fortunate enough to have great coaches that really invested in me and really cared about my development and my improvement. And then from there, I was lucky enough to earn a scholarship to play at Michigan State, and as you know, I came right behind you. So you were paving the way even before then, Jason. And I know I got there in 1999 into East Lansing. And that was the start of my collegiate football career in East Lansing.
Oh, man. Those are great times, when you think about what it took to get there. And, condolences for your father, losing him in the line of duty as a firefighter in the city of Detroit. That's definitely honorable for your family, and tough, I'm sure, you growing up. How did your upbringing help you in the locker room, let's say? Because as a football player, it takes a lot of grit in that locker room. We know that as Spartan dogs, but how did that help you not only play the game, but also transition into your career in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, it was incredibly helpful. Just being, in the locker room, being able to learn about resilience, not only in high school, but in college as well too. As you know, it was just getting out, in particular with football, just earning it every day. We had, our seasons, obviously, from August to whenever the bowl game was, whether it's December or January, but just the regimen. So whether it was winter conditioning or just being, in the summer in the weight room and doing our runs, we were taught to earn it every day. Like either you got better or you got worse. And I think that was incredibly helpful for me because, say we started the week and, I was in the weight room and didn't do as well as I should have on Monday. You accepted that, and then you would come back the next day because you couldn't dwell on it. The same with games. And I think that all taught me, just how to be a better teammate, how to continue to work hard and have people depend on me on the football field. And that carried over for me into the Marine Corps because it's the same kind of concept where, you're working together as a team towards an objective and towards a mission. And in football, it was winning games. It was working with your teammates to be the best player you could be. And in the Marine Corps, it was just that. It was to fight our nation's battles. And that was kind of the similarities there. So really, really earning it every day and trying to be the best Marine for either the Marines and sailors that I led or my bosses, my commanders, and making sure I got the job done at the end of the day.
Oh, man, I mean, that's an interesting path when you talk about your transition from the gridiron into, the battlefield, so to speak. What kind of sparked your interest into getting into the Marine Corps?
Yeah, it was a lot of it went back to my father. Even though I grew up, I didn't know him. I knew about him, what kind of person he was. So I had, friends and families and or family members and people that I went to church with. They all knew him in some form or fashion and knew what kind of person he was in his service as well too. And by the time I got done with football, I felt like, hey, I should do something to give back to my community, and I decided to join the Marine Corps. And I wasn't going to be a firefighter because my mom would have killed me doing that role. But joined the Marine Corps, and it was really out of service and out of his inspiration and what kind of person he was, and trying to emulate him. I think like a lot of us do, whether it's people that we look up to, we want to be that person, and I wanted to be him.
Wow. I mean, that's very special when you think about that, and when you think about the brotherhood at Michigan State, the Spartan brotherhood, what do you think it is about MSU that produces not just athletes, but also leaders in so many other areas?
I think it's the culture. I mean, I think it's, not only, the history of what Michigan State means to those that, came before us and will come after us and have come after us. But there is, I think, this implicit and explicit culture. Like, you're going to work hard. If you get you're going to work hard and get the opportunity to be successful. It's not guaranteed, but you'll get the chance. You get the chance to play Big Ten football and play the best teams in the country if you come to Michigan State. But you're going to do it in a way that is hard-nosed. It's going to be not backing down, and it's going to be something around toughness and making sure that you're going to be the toughest team on the field. And I think that's something that continues to stick with us. And it's not always about I think the wins and losses, but I think it's really about the culture that's been set. If you get to come here, you get the opportunity to win. It's not guaranteed, but if you work hard, you're going to set yourself up, your teammates up for success in East Lansing. And I think that's, what every player wants. They just want the opportunity to be on the biggest stage that there is with Big Ten football and be able to have an opportunity to win games and win championships.
So you got recruited. So 99, was that Saban's last year? It
was Saban's last year. What's that?
Did you have 3 coaches?
I did. I had, so it was funny. So And so it was Coach Saban and Coach Williams that came to my house, and they, my mother gave her blessing, and I had Coach Saban my freshman year when I was redshirted, and then Bobby for Coach Williams for 3 seasons, and then my last year, my 5th year, I had Coach.
Yeah. So that's unique. When guys that come in 99, if you did a redshirt year, you're getting 3 coaches during that span in Michigan State history of football. So that had to be a unique challenge going from those different personality types, right, as the head coach. Yeah, absolutely. It was certainly everyone was a little bit different. As you know, Coach Saban was, he was who he was. And, just, very, very straightforward, serious, all about, doing things, the right way always. And then Coach Williams, who, I thought was just, I thought was a great coach, and just the way he interacted with the players. Just those, him being there and being able to mentor us and make us better. And then finished with Coach Smith, who we had my last year, his first year. I think he was Big Ten Coach of the Year, with that first year, and really brought that kind of spread offense, and did things a little bit different coming from Louisville. Yeah. Ricardo coming here. Yeah. That was different, So you've been able to deal with those different head coaches. What was the moment? Now you transitioned to the Marine Corps. And when was that moment when you said, I want to go into politics? Yeah, it was. I thought that after my time in the Marine Corps, I served 4 years. I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan. And then I thought, okay, my service is, to my country is, I've done it. Yeah. And I came back home. I went to a graduate school, and we don't have to talk about where I went. And we'll just leave it. Hey, listen, no judgment-free zone here. Judgment-free. Right? That too. I have family, close to my own son down the road. It's okay. It's okay. And so I went there. I thought I was going to. I got was getting my MBA, and thought I was going to go into the private sector. So working in probably the automotive industry in Southeast Michigan or financial services. And while I was there, I had a friend of mine who was a teaching assistant for a class on how to run for office. And she recommended that I take the class. And I did. It was called Running, Serving, and Leading. It was taught by a former state senator at the time who ended up becoming governor of the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. Who's still governor. And that was my first, experience there, just learning about how to run for office and elected office and what does that mean. And then soon after, I decided to do a second service of sorts and ran for office. And that was 2016 was the first time that I ran for office. Wow. So wait, so you are down the road. Isn't Gretchen a Spartan, if I'm not mistaken? She is. She is. Yeah. So she's teaching at the Ross School of Business. She was teaching at the Ford School. Okay. So now you've got the bug to run for office. You obviously won and became Speaker of the House in the state of Michigan. How do you deal with the pressure and public scrutiny of politics compared to like a game day or heavy practice, one of those winter conditioning sessions? Is it similar in any way? It is. There are similarities. I think one of the things that
that really surprised me going into elected office and into politics. I think in football, you know who your teammates are. You know who. Here's the uniforms, and these are the games that we're going to play, and this is where we're going to compete, and you work towards that. The similarities in politics are they're a little more malleable in terms of, you may have an issue that you're working on, and you'll have this coalition that can be supportive of a particular issue, policy issue. But then you get to a next issue, and then it's a whole nother, dynamic. So you'll have people that may be on board and maybe not. And, we have our parties, and we have our politics. You have Democrats, Republicans. But even that can kind of shift depending on the issue that you're focused on. So sometimes the teams, depending on the issue, can move around depending on what it is. But it's still learned a lot. I mean, still, how do you overcome adversity on things, and how do you just continue to work, even though you may not accomplish what you want to get accomplished, say in year 2 or 3, and you have to just come back and be resilient when getting things done in politics.
Yeah, the quote was, "In politics, we make strange bedfellows." I think that's the one I can recall, and it's different. Life is politics too. It's all over the place, But Joe, like, on behalf of all the student athletes in the state of Michigan, I want to thank you for introducing this bill that we're going to get into now, the HB 4643, which safeguards the rights of all collegiate athletes in the state of Michigan. Just for people who are listening and watching this show and listening on the podcast, can you explain the bill and what was introduced a few weeks ago here in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bill built off of the work that we were able to do several years prior. As there's been this ongoing conversation going on 20 plus years now about student athletes being able to have the opportunity to take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, to be able to benefit from that. And, when we were student athletes, we couldn't accept a sandwich or beef jerky or bubble gum from anyone without, our scholarship being in jeopardy, or our ability to play and compete in a sport, and putting that in jeopardy. So, this kind of built off of that. Back in 2019, 2020, you began to see states basically saying, no, like, student athletes can benefit from this. And, I was proud to lead on legislation to allow for NIL for student athletes in the state of Michigan. That became law in 2020. Mm-hmm. Then you fast forward to 2025, where you have the court case, the House versus the NCAA, that allow for this agreement and revenue sharing with the Power 5 conferences entering, moving in that situation. But what we saw was from the court case, there was just this piece just around the clearinghouse that essentially conflicted with current state law. And then we really didn't have additional clarity to ensure in the state of Michigan, to ensure that student athletes don't have to go, through some process or get approvals from someone else to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. And that's what this bill does, is essentially says, no outside entities can essentially tell what a student athlete, what contracts binding and legal contracts that they can enter into to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, and ensuring that student athletes have the agency and have the empowerment to be able to make their decisions, student athletes, to benefit from NIL. We know that it's tough being a student athlete. Probably tougher than when we were in, just with it, the scrutiny. But you still have classes that you have to go to. You still have your sport that you're focusing on to compete in, and that doesn't leave a lot of other time for you to benefit from NIL. So being able to have a full experience as a student athlete and not being prohibited from taking advantage of NIL.
Wow. And you touched on something there a minute ago where you said that the House settlement basically forces schools within the state to break the current law. Now, how does that work? Because the current law, I believe, doesn't ask for players or athletes to disclose something of $5,000. I'm not sure. Explain how that works right there, because currently, without this new bill, with the House settlement at the NCAA level, you would be breaking Michigan law, correct?
Yes, it conflicts with it, just in terms of what we have, specifically with the clearinghouse. That's saying that you're going to have NCAA has this entity that's going to, all the student athletes above a certain threshold, they have to be able to send this through a clearinghouse to get final approval of it. And right now that does conflict in terms of what we put in terms of law back in 2020, basically saying nobody's going to inhibit student athletes' ability from doing that. There's some guardrails in the legislation. There are certain things that you can't benefit if there conflicts with the university that you're in, that you attend. But this bill just adds additional clarity, ensures that no entity can prohibit student athletes from being able. So I think that's an important just aspect of it, just to ensure that the NCAA or any other entity, organization can actually do this. And I think it not only helps the student athlete, but I think it helps the state of Michigan as well too. I mean, we're saying that for student athletes, Michigan is open for business. The state of Michigan is. Like, if you're going to a university, you're going to be able to have agency and make decisions on which contracts that you enter into during your time as a student athlete in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, I would think it's a huge recruiting advantage for the state of Michigan at all universities, Michigan State, Eastern, Western, all the directional schools, everybody. When you have these types of protections covered at the state legislature. And so, I mean, I like that. It's open for business here in the state of Michigan for recruiting aspect. I mean, how can it be better than that? And when you talk about the $20.5 million cap, everybody's talking about that cap, and we all know the bulk of that money is going to the big revenue generator in football and obviously men's basketball. But what about the other sports? Does this law help, this new amendment, does this help the other sports as well?
I think it does in terms of protecting student athletes and in general, or empowering student athletes. I think is probably a better a better word for that, because as we mentioned before and we talked about it, being a student athlete, that's more than a full-time job. Like, you are competing you are representing, the university that you go to. So there's a certain standard that you have to uphold. And that's part of it. And then you have to be able to do well in the classroom. Like you have to earn your education, earn that degree or those degrees while you are a student athlete. But then also, what if, say, you're not on a full ride scholarship, or you are in an Olympic sport? How can you be able to, in certain situations, want to make sure that you're making ends meet, or you're able to cover some of your costs? This is a real opportunity to be able to do that. Being able to take advantage of your name, image, and likeness as well too. So I think it actually creates a better experience where you can say, I have this additional avenue to take advantage of while I'm a student athlete, to be able to, potentially cover the cost of your rent or part of your tuition, say, if you aren't on the full ride. And I think it makes it better. I think it creates an atmosphere that you have these opportunities here, so you won't always have to be worrying about, okay, how am I going to cover this? How I'm going to, whether it's tuition or food or transportation or rent.
Well, 100%. I think, with that third party endorsement, and this things that you don't need to, you're talking about the clearinghouse that the House settlement is referring to, that you need to send anything over $600. Athletes that are getting an NIL deal over $600 needs to get approval from an outside entity. Removing that hurdle obviously will help a lot of athletes in a lot of ways, and the universities as well, because it does not count against their $20.5 million cap for their entire athletic department. Charitable Gift America, a person, Tom Dieters over there was just instrumental in working with you on this particular bill, is one of those legitimate NIL third-party sources that I think will unlock a lot of opportunities for schools within the state of Michigan. So we're very excited about that, and we thank you for being able to do what you're doing. And also, we want to talk about your run for U.S. Senate, and we have a website, I believe, here that we could put up, because what we need to do, everyone, is support Joe Tate, on his run. The primary is coming up next. What month is it?
Next August of 2026.
Yeah, but we need money. We need donations now to keep the ball rolling, keep that momentum going for Joe. So anybody who's paying attention and can help out here, I think this is an absolute awesome opportunity to help one of our Spartan brothers. That can be. He's already done so much for us in the state of Michigan, and think about what he could do when he gets to Washington, D.C. Joe, if you have anything else to add to that, the floor is yours.
Thank you. No, it's just continuing a way to continue serving. My focus is making sure that, all Michiganders, have that opportunity. If you're working hard, you have good ideas, you can get ahead in life, and your children can get ahead in life. And I think that's something that not everyone has the opportunity to do in Michigan. And as a senator, having the voice and being able to use the tools to ensure that all Michiganders can get ahead. That's my focus. That's what I'm going to be doing, and talking to Michiganders one-on-one about what's going well here in Michigan, and then also the challenges, and then how we can support, and how government should be able to support and come up with solutions that support them and their lives and their families' lives.
Oh, man, that's awesome, man. We're all supporting you here, Joe, man. And again, really, really, really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. I know with your busy schedule, you've got a lot of things that you could be doing right now, but you chose to spend some time with us. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Good luck on your campaign, obviously, over the next year. And we'll, if there's any new things that are coming up in the legislature, I don't know, maybe we'll have you back on the show and talk a little bit of football and or politics, man. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe. Joe Tate, candidate for U.S. Senate and current representative of the Michigan State House of Representatives. Thank you for joining. This is Sparta.